Here's the top 10 Super Bowls of all time. Number 10, the game that started the first Super Bowl era dynasty. Super Bowl number 9. On Sunday, January 12, 1975, the 10-3-1 Steelers took on the 10-4 Minnesota Vikings. The game featured the two best defenses of the decade. The Vikings defensive line made up of Alan Page, Carl Eller, Jim Marshall, Gary Larson, but better known for the 1958 Sheb Wooley hit song, The Purple People Eaters, a song about a one-eyed purple alien. The Steelers' defensive line, led by Mean Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood, Ernie Holmes, and Dwight White. Their nickname was the Steel Curtain, which the entire defense adopted. There is even a ride named after them in the Pittsburgh theme park. At halftime, the score was the Steelers 2 and the Vikings nothing. The game did open up a bit in the second half, and the Steelers went on to win 16-6. Chuck Noll was the winning coach, while Bud Grant was the losing coach. Fran Tarkenton was 11 for 26 for 102 yards and 3 INTs. Chuck Foreman and Dave Osborne had 20 rushing attempts for 17 yards. For the Steelers, Terry Bradshaw was 9 for 14 for 96 yards and 1 TD. Rocky Blair had 17 rushing attempts for 65 yards, and the Super Bowl MVP, Franco Harris, had 34 attempts for 158 yards. The Steelers went on to win 3 more Super Bowls in the 1970s and 2 more in the 2000s. The Vikings lost 4 Super Bowls in the 1970s and have never had a lead in any Super Bowl, let alone won one. Number 9. Another start to a dynasty, Super Bowl 16. On Sunday, January 24th, 1982, the 13-3 San Francisco 49ers were 1-point favorites over the 12-4 Cincinnati Bengals. This game took place indoors in Pontiac, Michigan, but it was a very, very cold day. The game was looking like a blowout when the 49ers went into halftime up 20-0. Ken Anderson led a huge comeback, scoring a touchdown in the third quarter and 2 in the fourth quarter, but the 49ers were able to get a couple field goals and won 26-21. For the Bengals, Ken Anderson was 25 of 34 for 300 yards with 2 TDs and 2 INTs and a rushing TD. Dan Ross had 11 rushes for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now here's a guy, Chris Collinsworth, who had 5 catches for 107 yards. The Super Bowl MVP, Joe Montana, with the modest 14 for 22 for 157 yards and 1 TD, as well as a rushing TD. Joe Montana went on to win the Super Bowl again in 1985, 1989, and 1990. And Steve Young tacked on another one in 1995 to make 5 total for the 49ers franchise. Number 8, Super Bowl 32, played on January 25th, 1998, featured the 12-4 Denver Broncos, coached by Mike Shanahan, and the defending Super Bowl champions, the Green Bay Packers, coached by Mike Holmgren. Denver's quarterback John Elway had come into the game with 3 Super Bowl losses in Super Bowl 21, 22, and 24. Not to mention the Broncos came into the game 11-point underdogs. The Denver Broncos led at halftime 17-14. The Packers did tie the game 24-24 on a Brett Favre pass to Antonio Freeman. However, the Broncos were able to mount a game-winning drive, capped off by a third 1-yard touchdown run by Terrell Davis. The Broncos, despite being 11-point dogs, win this game 34-24. The Broncos went on to repeat in Super Bowl 33, where John Elway was named Super Bowl MVP in his 5th and final Super Bowl appearance. For the Packers, Brett Favre was 25 for 42 for 256 yards and 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Dorsey Levens had 19 carries for 90 yards and 6 catches for 56 yards. Antonio Freeman had 9 receptions for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. John Elway was 12 for 22 for just 123 yards and 1 touchdown with a rushing TD. And a guy that has made a fool of himself in the media, Shannon Sharp, had 5 receptions for 38 yards. The Super Bowl 32 MVP, Terrell Davis, 30 carries for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns. Number 7, Super Bowl 51. Super Bowl 51 featured head coach Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots taking on coach Dan Quinn and the underdog Atlanta Falcons on February 5th, 2017. The Atlanta Falcons surprised the world up 21-3 at halftime, and at the famous 28-3 score in the third quarter. With a little over 8 minutes left in the third quarter, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots began the comeback of all comebacks. The Patriots scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal and converted 2 two-point conversions after missing an extra point on their first TD. In overtime, the Patriots scored to win the game 34-28. In the final 23 minutes of Super Bowl 51, the Patriots had to do everything right, and the Atlanta Falcons had to do everything wrong. Veteran Matt Ryan finished the game for the Falcons 17 for 23 for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Freeman had 11 carries for 75 yards. Julio Jones had 4 receptions for 87 yards. For the Patriots, LeGarrette Blount rushed 11 times for 31 yards. Danny Amendola had 8 receptions for 78 yards and a TD. The Super Bowl 51 MVP Tom Brady was 43 for 62, 466 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick six, earning himself his 5th of 7 Super Bowls. Number 6, Super Bowl 36. On Sunday, February 3rd, 2002, Bill Belichick and the 14-point underdog New England Patriots were set to take on the mastermind Mike Martz and the greatest show on turf, the St. Louis Rams. Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce were held to just 3 points through 3 quarters. Kurt Warner did mount a comeback, rushing and throwing for TDs in the fourth to tie the game. At 17 apiece with 1 minute and 30 seconds left in the game, we didn't know it at the time, but this is when Tom Brady did what he's most famous for. That is, leading his team down the field to a field goal winning kick, which Adam Vinatieri made from 48 yards, sealing the victory for the Patriots 20-17. Kurt Warner finished with 365 yards on 28 of 44 in attempts, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 1 rushing TD. Marshall Faulk had 17 carries for 76 yards as well as 4 receptions for 54 yards. The Patriots were able to hold Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt to 10 catches for 105 yards for the both of them. Tom Brady was just 16 for 27 for 145 yards, 1 touchdown, and he was named Super Bowl 36 MVP, and the rest is history. Now for my least favorite part of the video, please click the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Number 5, Super Bowl 54. We've talked a little bit about the Steelers and the 49ers and the Patriots dynasties, but on Sunday, February 2nd, 2020, there was a new dynasty beginning. The Kyle Shanahan coached San Francisco 49ers played to a 10-10 tie at half. The 49ers went on to score 10 in the third to take a 20-10 lead. Unfortunately for the 49ers, Andy Reid and the coaching staff dialed up the offense and the defense. The Chiefs went on to score 3 unanswered touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes had TD passes to Travis Kelce and Damian Williams. Williams added another touchdown on a 38-yard run to seal the victory, 31-20 for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs made it back to the Super Bowl the following year, only to lose to Tom Brady and the Bucs, and then they lost in the AFC Championship the following year to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Chiefs beat the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57 and beat the 49ers again last year. The Kansas City Chiefs are looking to make history by three-peating. The 49ers' Jimmy Garoppolo finished with 219 yards on 20 for 31, 1 touchdown, and 2 INTs. For the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill had 9 receptions for 105 yards. Travis Kelce had 6 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown. Damian Williams had 17 carries for 104 yards, 1 rushing TD, and 1 receiving TD. The Super Bowl 54 MVP, Patrick Mahomes, was 26 for 42 for 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Mahomes went on to win Super Bowls 57 and 58 MVPs. Number 4, Super Bowl 7. Sunday, January 14, 1973, history was made. The Don Shula-led Miami Dolphins entered Super Bowl 7 with a regular season record of 14-0 and 2 playoff wins, going for a perfect season. The Miami Dolphins were able to take a 2-touchdown lead into halftime, and with their running game backed by a great offensive line, Larry Zonka and company were able to lean on that the entire game. The game was all about the Dolphins' defense and their ground game on offense. The Washington Redskins' only score was a special teams fumble recovery for a TD. The Redskins' quarterback, Billy Kilmore, was 14 for 28 for 104 yards, but had 3 INTs. For the 17-0 Super Bowl champs, Bob Greasy was 8 for 11. Yes, you heard that correctly. 8 for 11 for just 88 yards. Larry Zonka had 15 carries for 112 yards, but the MVP of Super Bowl 7 was safety Jake Scott, who had 2 interceptions. Number 3, Super Bowl 25. On Sunday, January 27th, 1991, another dynasty was born. What an absolute coaching matchup between Marv Levy for the Bills and the great Bill Parcells for the Giants. The Giants came into the game as 7-point underdogs. The Bills came into the game with one of the most prolific offenses ever assembled in the game. The game plan for the Giants was to control the ball. The Giants came out in the third quarter down 12-10 and had a 75-yard drive using 9 minutes and 29 seconds off the clock. Then Matt Barr put up the Giants 20-19 with 7:40 left to go in the game. The Bills would get their chance. They started on their own 10 with just 2 minutes left. A couple Jim Kelly scrambles, and finally their first third down conversion of the game, a 21-yard run by Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas set them up for a 47-yard field goal attempt from the right hash. Scott Norwood attempted his longest field goal ever on grass and pushed it wide right. Jim Kelly was 18 for 30 for 212 yards. Thurman Thomas had 15 carries for 135 yards and 1 touchdown. Andre Reed caught 8 balls for 62 yards. For the New York Giants, Jeff Hostetler was 20 for 32 for 222 yards and a touchdown. Otis Anderson had 21 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown. Mark Ingram and Mark Bavaro had combined for 10 receptions for 124 yards. And the Buffalo Bills dynasty was born. They went on to appear in the next 3 Super Bowls, losing all 3. After losing 2019 to the Giants, they lost the following year 37-24 to the Redskins, and they went on to lose back-to-back games to the Cowboys with a total score of 82 for the Cowboys, 30 for the Bills. Number 2, Super Bowl 42, on Sunday, February 3rd, 2008. Previously, at number 4 on my rankings, we had Super Bowl 7, where the Miami Dolphins won to end their season a perfect 17-0. Well, in this case, the Bill Belichick coached New England Patriots were 18-0 coming into the game. The New England Patriots were 12-point favorites, and they were set to take on the Tom Coughlin coached New York Football Giants. The Patriots were attempting to make history and finish the season 19-0. Never done before. The Giants took an early lead, 3-0 in the first quarter. The Patriots answered back to start the second quarter and went into halftime up 7-3. Third quarter, there was no score. A strike from Tom Brady to Randy Moss put the Patriots up 14-10 with 2 minutes and 39 seconds left. The Giants started at their own 17-yard line. A 4th and 1 first down by Brandon Jacobs kept the drive alive. The Pats defensive back Samuel missed an interception to seal the game from New England. And then the most famous play of all, on 3rd and 5, Eli Manning somehow escapes the sack and throws up a prayer that was caught by David Tyree with 59 seconds left. And finally, a Steve Smith catch and a 14-yard lob to the 6'6" Plexico Burress to put the Pats up 17-14 with just 35 seconds left in the game. A couple deep, incomplete balls to Randy Moss and the Giants seal the victory, preventing the perfect season. Tom Brady ends 29 for 48 for 266 yards and 1 TD. Wes Welker had 11 receptions for 103 yards, and Randy Moss had 5 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. Armani Toomer and Steve Smith had a combined 11 for 134 yards, and the Super Bowl 42 MVP Eli Manning was 19 for 34 for 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Before I announce number 1, please comment a Super Bowl you believe should be on this list that didn't make it. I will be releasing another video shortly with more great game, this time focusing on the quality of an isolated game versus the significance of franchises and the course of Super Bowl history. And now, without further ado, number 1, Super Bowl 3. I don't think the NFL would be where it is today if it wasn't for what happened on January 12, 1969 between the NFC Baltimore Colts, coached by Don Shula, and the lowly AFC New York Jets, coached by Weeb Ewbank. At that time, the NFC was like today's NFL, and the AFC was considered to be like the XFL or the USFL, or what we know as today's spring football, the UFL. The Jets were 18-point underdogs, but just a few days before the game, Joe Namath famously made his guarantee at a banquet. The Jets led at halftime 7-0 and 13-0 after 3 quarters, and 16-0 before the Colts were able to score. And the final ended up the New York Jets 16 and the Baltimore Colts 7. For the Colts, Johnny Unitas was 11 for 24 for 110 yards and an interception. Tom Matei rushed 11 times for 116 yards. For the Jets, Matt Snell had 30 rushes for 121 yards, and George Sauer had 8 receptions for 133 yards. And the MVP of Super Bowl III, otherwise known as Broadway Joe, Joe Namath, who was 17 for 28 for 206 yards.